Ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to start our next fishing topic. The topic is freshwater fishing. It's more than just impoundments. And we have 4 anglers with us. We have Aric, Dean, Tommy and Ethan. How we're going to start is I'll have a chat to each of you individually and give us a little bit of a rundown on the style of fishing you do and how the journey started for you. Aric, we'll start with you.
Okay, so my style of fishing these days is a tiny bit more leaning towards the impoundment stuff, but I cut my teeth doing the creek stuff, and I spent probably 15 years in the creeks and that sort of thing, but getting a bit older now, a bit lazier, so I...
So where is home for you?
Home is the Gold Coast for me, so
Yep.
I've cut my teeth in all the Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, further north than that, northern New South Wales. Spent a lot of time in northern New South Wales, to be honest, over the years. And yeah, just local dams and that sort of thing. Yeah, get myself around.
Dino, we've seen you do a lot of fishing in a lot of different places over the years. What's the freshwater fishing for Dean Silvester? What's the story?
Well, these days now I live in Gladstone, so I'm 17 minutes from Awonga, so Barramundi is pretty much it for me, but a lot of people know me for my bass tournament fishing. I spent a lot of years tournament fishing for bass, but I originally didn't start fishing in freshwater. I sort of grew up a lot of saltwater stuff, so brim, whiting, flathead, all those sorts of things, but now it's pretty much predominantly barramundi.
Tommy?
Yeah, so I currently live on the Sunshine Coast now, but was lucky enough to grow up in the beautiful town of Gingin up near Bundaberg there, and got pretty lucky enough to finish Lake Mondrian with my dad, so I grew up fishing for barramundi. It was epic, so yeah, love it.
Ethan, where's home for you, and what was the freshwater fishing that you first started doing?
So yeah, for me, home's North Brisbane, so sort of around the Redcliffe area. I originated my fishing in the US actually, so grew up in California, so chasing largemouth and that sort of stuff.
You and Tommy are going to have a lot to chat about.
Yeah.
So Aric, why the freshwater? What is it? Why does it float your boat?
I don't know, it's just the places that it takes me, I think, more than anything. You get out to these remote areas, you've got no reception or anything. You can spend a couple of days floating down a river in a canoe or a kayak or something like that, and that really is a big draw to me. It has been for a lot of years. So
now, Dino, you've spent a lot of your fishing the freshwater, and I've seen a lot of videos of you walking creeks in New South Wales, catching cod and so forth. It's a style of fishing that really touches you.
Yeah, much like Aric said, it's like where it takes you, like if I'm tasting even anything from trout, I don't even mind targeting like European carp in freshwater streams and stuff as well. It's there's no reception, there's no people, you're just in the environment and you get to sort of absorb the whole natural scene and what's going on with the fish.
It's a great style of fishing to unplug from the digital world and just disappear into the wild, Tom.
Yeah, 100%. Like, we're pretty lucky here in Australia. We've got some beautiful impoundments like Lake St. Clair down in New South Wales. You come down the campground there, it's just amazing. And then you go all out to Lake Tinaroo. There's 3 different waterfalls that flow into the lake, and it's just stunning.
Now, Ethan, you mentioned the US. How does the fishing we have here compare to there when it comes to the freshwater?
I think it's pretty incredible. So, in Australia you have some amazing species. And one of the ones that I target the most is Saratoga. And the type of country and places that you get to go to chasing then is incredible. And getting out there and it's just amazing. So
Dino, I think you said you started in the salt water. What made you make that transition? Because I was the same. I was a saltwater guy, and I'm like, what's this bass fishing thing that I read about? And I made that step. How did you get started?
Well, bass fishing for me is probably a whole different story. I'm very competitive, and a friend of mine used to ask me to come catch a bass, and I never wanted to do it. I'm like, I don't want to chase that. I want to catch big fish, and the weather was no good for us to go fishing, and went to Lake St. Clair. There was a tournament on. First time we'd ever caught bass. We caught 8 fish, sort of nudging 50 on spinnerbaits. Come back to the tournament, and they'd caught smaller fish, and I thought, this is interesting, and pretty much dedicated 12 years of my life just to targeting bass, and it's, I guess the bass side of it for me was the competitive side of it, but just it's so innate with all the tackle and techniques and stuff that you can do in the different areas. Like Australia's, as he said, it's very big and broad, so you can do a lot of different techniques for the same fish.
I mentioned it before that fishing, there's a lot of rabbit holes you can disappear down, and you definitely disappeared down the tournament hole for quite some time. Now, Aric, we can make the mistake of thinking bigger is better when it comes to catching fish. So the bigger the fish is, the more enjoyable, the more rewarding it is. With freshwater, it's not about how big it is. It's the sum of the parts, isn't it?
Exactly right. It's definitely not about the size of the fish that you're going out to chase each day. You know, maximum size or a trophy size of a bass is 50 centimetres. You know, so that's not huge in anybody's world really, especially the saltwater world. But yeah, it's a challenge of being able to go and target something in freshwater. It can just come down to a slight change in 10 millimetres of lure, or it can come down to a slight colour change or something like that. There's always so many variables to think about in the fresh. I know there's a lot to think about in the salt as well, but you've got a big wide ocean out there. You really got to cater yourself to what's that local bait source. What's the weather doing that week? How's the barometer? That sort of thing. That's what I target most.
So, Tommy, taking on something new, you've been a saltwater angler your whole life, and you're going to make that change into fresh. How do you make that transition? What are the things that you need to be aware of? What do you do? How do you maximise your chances of catching that first fish?
I think best thing to start before you even get to the boat ramp is definitely do your research, because these lakes, some of the lakes we got are absolutely huge, and even going out with a guide like Corey Gooch up in Glass, and he's one of the best guides on that dam, and he just knows like the back of his hand. If you're going to go barra fishing especially, they can be pretty tough to figure out. If you go out with a guide, figure it out, they'll teach you all the tricks, and then it'll help you sort of get your feet on the ground to catch some fish in the freshwater.
All right, Ethan, tomorrow's Sunday, you don't have to work, you get a leave pass from the family, you can go fishing. What are you going to go and chase, and what are you going to catch them with?
If I'm going out tomorrow, I'll probably be going either first light, or I'll be going for that last light afternoon period, and I'll be throwing top waters. So for me, the baby goat by Z-Man with the 2.0 chin locks has been absolutely dynamite for me for last year, and I'll be chasing Saratoga up in the lilies. So.
Now, Dino, when we go and fish the salt, the tide comes in, it goes out, it comes in, it goes out, and it's a regular pattern. It changes every 28 days with neaps and spring tides. Freshwater, you don't have tides, but there are still things you need to look for. You know, the water levels are high, they can be low. What are the things you need to consider?
Well, for me, and it's been a major contributor over the past couple of years, is moon phases and moon position. So, and even tide. So when you come, like moon phases, you have a full moon and a new moon. And when you're closer to those periods, moon above and moon below are your peak bite windows. And when you move away from the moon, sort of in between moons, then even though the tide isn't an influence, it still is a bite trigger.
And that's a really interesting thing. When we started doing the barrow tournament, so we are talking late 90s, early 2000s, people would say, oh, they bit at this time because it was a high tide. And you're like, hang on, but there are no tides in here. But those tidal phases, they still have an effect in the lakes.
Yeah, well, the gravitational effect, obviously, that affects the tide, still affects the fish, and that's a natural trigger for them to feed.
Absolutely. So, in many ways, it's the things that you use in salt also apply to the fresh, Tom.
Yeah, 100%. And another big factor too, I think, is wind. A lot of the time with the salt, you kind of try and get away from the wind, but with barramundi, they absolutely love the wind. It creates like an underwater current that you can't really see, and a lot of energy gets pushed. You can get dirty water lines, and it pushes bait, oxygen, and just fires them up. So wind is your friend in the dams.
So, Aric, you've got tomorrow off too. You get to go fishing. I'm going to send you bass fishing in this part of the world. You don't have to give an exact location, and you don't have to give a creek and a bend, but what are you going to look for? What style of water you're fishing? What are the things that you're trying to identify that you think will give you fish?
Okay, so right now we're in a close season for bass in the creeks and rivers, so you can basically just discount that straight away.
Well, assume it's the 1st of September.
Okay,
and you're good to go.
If it's the 1st of September, I'm probably going to go and hit up the Cooma River, and I'm probably going to go and hit the lower sections down around the mango tree and things like that. Caught some big bass up that end over the years, and yeah, that's probably where I would go if it was September 1st, mate.
Now, of course, the bass in the rivers, they go up and down depending whether it's winter, summer. As a general guide, during winter they're down low because they spawn, and then they move up in summer.
Exactly
so you're
right.
fishing there because you reckon that's where they're staged at that time.
Well, yes, They do in the Coomera. They are a little bit different. I've noticed that pattern just over 15 years or 20 years of fishing it. They do tend to move up the system a little bit quicker than most. So you can get them up to that 5-10k back up past those weirs within a month of them spawning type thing. So
are you using lures or are you going old school bait?
Oh no, I'm lures all the way, mate. So yeah, your soft plastics. Top water's a big one in the rivers and creeks. So yeah, your soft plastics, jerk baits, things like that. I try and keep them around the 65 mil mark. That seems to work for me.
And you have a stretcher bank. What are the features that you are looking for on that bank?
Okay, so if there's any laydowns coming into the timber, into the water, grass edges, things like that, anything that there's going to be a bait source in, basically, you're going to get a lot of small fish around your snags, things like that. You know, in your grass edges, you're going to get all your bugs and things like that, and getting pushed into the water and things like that. So it's just try and target your natural bait source, really, where your bait's going to be sitting.
Now, Dino, when we go fishing, we want to know where the fish are, and more importantly, we want to know why they are there. Now, when you go to a impoundment like a Woonga, which is just up the road from you, a big expansive lake, it looks like just a large puddle, but it's not. There are things that make the fish hold in different areas. What are you looking for?
Well, that sort of depends on time of year. So I guess if you're looking, now, the next sort of coming months, you're looking for warmer bays. They're going to push back out of the main basin areas into the backs of those bays. It's going to be nice and warm. Same thing, you're looking for bait as well. So you're looking for a temperature increase, physical signs of bait, and then as Tom mentioned, wind. Like wind is always going to be your friend in those sorts of lakes. If it's super windy, I'll just move as comfortable as I can get to that rough water, but wind generates current. It also forces the bait into like a trap position as well. It doesn't allow the bait to come out and just gives those barramundi like a target line to travel through.
So in essence, you're identifying the things that the barra like, how they behave, new things that you need to learn, and you need to learn for a new species. Now, Tommy, you've been to the States recently, new species, largemouth, smallmouth. Was it hard to get your head around that new species and how they behaved and what they wanted and where they hung out?
Yeah, it was very daunting. Like, those guys over there have got it dialed, so there's hundreds of techniques, all different worms, colours. There's like tens of different ways you can rig one worm. So it was very daunting, but I've done heaps of research over the years. I just love it. And learning it's so cool. Like, every state is so different over there. And same here. Like, they have their different techniques, and then time of the year. So the fish over there, they breed in the freshwater. So you're looking for pre-spawn fish, post-spawn fish, and they migrate to different parts of the lakes, and you got to throw stuff from deep cranks up to 30 foot of water, and then you're skipping worms under docks in 1 or 2 foot. So it can be pretty daunting, but if you just stick with your basics, you should be pretty sweet.
Has there been much that you've learned over there that you've then come back and applied to our species here, like barra in particular?
I've tried it, but like there's so much. I've tried like worms and everything on bass as well over here. Like, they will eat it. It's not a game changer or anything, but yeah. I think just the old standard Aussie lures, like the old black gold, they just still pretty good.
They work for a reason.
Yeah.
Black gold, mate, all the way.
Ethan, for the folks who are going to go for a freshwater fish this afternoon in this part of the world, what kind of outfit would they need? Rod and reel?
I'd say it'd be pretty hard to go past a 2,000 size reel, anywhere from 2,000, 3,000 size reel. 10-pound braid, 10-pound leader, and 7 foot 2 to 4 kilo rod. That would definitely cover you for most of what you need to do. So
now, lure choice, Aric. We can almost sink our boat, our kayak, with the amount of gear that we could have. I'm going to give you one lure tray. What are the baits that you're going to have in that tray?
Okay, in my lure tray, if I had one tray to pick from, I would have jerk baits, a spinnerbait, a soft plastic rigged weedless, and a top water. Yep, I would say either a cicada or a popper.
Now, are you a morning kind of guy or an afternoon guy for your creek bass fishing?
Morning all the way. I'll get there at 3 o'clock in the morning just to be there for daylight. So, yep, I'm all mornings, mate.
Surface rise.
Yes, I'm definitely all about the early morning surface and getting that first bite, and then home to the missus and the kids by 10 o'clock. So
I'd go for the sleep in and go for the afternoon rise. Dino, you get to go fishing on some of the streams in Western New South Wales chasing cod tomorrow. What's the outfit that you take? And you can only take one outfit. And what are the lures you're going to have in your tray?
Outfit, I probably wear a blue shirt and some cream pants. No, walking the creeks, I like to run. I'm fairly tall, so I can get away with it. But I just love a 7-foot combo and a 200 size bait caster.
Yep.
I run the Corrado DC because it doesn't matter if I'm under a tree, back to front, whatever, I can do it. I won't get a backlash. And just as recent times, I've found I run like a medium-sized glide bait, and it's very hard to go past it. Like a 40 centimetre cod will smack it just as quick as a metre 10 cod. So
it's that ideal size, or a smaller fish will eat it, but a bigger one will as well.
yeah, 100%. And it's it blows your mind how far down its throat a small cod will get that big lure. Like, I feel like because it's sort of semi-intimidating for them, they can't mess around, so they just head first the whole thing, and half the time they can't fight because they're going in like this. So it's very entertaining.
Tommy, you're off to, I won't send you a Woonga because Dean's already been there and he's fished it out. I'll send you to Mondi though, Lake Misery.
Yeah.
How is it fishing this time of the year?
It's actually really good. It can be hard. Like, we got opportunities with live scope now, which has completely changed the game. We used to fish the edges and points for years, but now we're sort of discovering there's a whole other class of fish out deep that live there year round, and they're pelagic. So they pretty much move up and down the dam depending on the time of the year, and the guys are catching them like metre 10s at the moment out in the middle of the dam, just putting lures on their nose. So, but if you're going up to Mondrian, it can be a hard place. Definitely want to go with a guide up there. I've been up there plenty of times and caught bugger all. So yeah, she's a hard place.
That's why it's called Lake Misery. Now, before I forget this one, I'm going to ask you before we move on. You're a very analytical angler. We've seen you evolve over the years, adopted new techniques, tried new patterns. You're a good guy to experiment. Have you got anything at the moment that you're working on that you think is going to be good for the Barra moving forward?
I think there's a technique in the States they use a fair bit at the moment with live scope. It's called like strolling or mid-strolling, and it's a small minnow bait, really lightweight, and they pretty much just suspend in front of the fish's face, just barely moving it. And I think with these fish getting more and more pressure, I think that could start to come into a play with a bit of stuff like that. But yeah.
And we saw a similar approach appear on the Barra scene a few years ago where, I remember a video of Morgo at Kinchin catching fish in the middle of nowhere and jerkbaiting suspended fish. We are being able to access fish now that in the past we didn't focus on them. We were busy focusing on the edges.
Exactly.
We're touching fish we didn't before.
Yep. So that class is out there like year round, like I said. And Morgo sort of discovered that a couple of years ago now, and I thought he was crazy for doing it, fishing out in the middle. But you can put a lure in front of those fish's face and you can suspend it there. Like, we use the Samaki Redix, they're like a little 80 mil jerk bait, and they suspend perfectly out of the box. So all you got to do is get in front of the fish's face and just let it sit there. And you can wait up to 10 seconds sometimes, and they'll just look at it. And some will bite, and some will just swim away. So
now, freshwater fishing, and I very much see this on the back of, in the early days of tournaments, YouTube with cod fishing and swim baits. We've seen a real growth in the industry and interest in freshwater fishing. I suppose the question is, what is the state of the freshwater fisheries? How do you think they're doing at the moment, Ethan? Are they in a good place, or are they getting better, getting worse?
I think in Queensland in particular, I think they're doing a really, really good job. Recently I was able to go out with the Iwamatic stocking group and spend a bit of time with them, and a lot of the programs that they're doing to put back into the dams that they're looking after have been fantastic. So I think Queensland's in a really good spot, and I think I'm looking forward to seeing what else they can do.
Dino, you've had your toe in the water for a long time, and you've touched many parts of freshwater fishing. As we mentioned, you were deep into the tournament, so you've seen them at their absolute peak. What's the state of the fishing at the moment? Is it in a good place?
Mate, 100%. It's, as far as I'm concerned, even like Australia-wide, Victoria Fisheries do an amazing job with all their fisheries down there. There's cod just about everywhere. There's big trout everywhere. New South Wales, Murray cod scene, like, you used to have to know someone to get into somewhere special. Now I'm just going national park entrance, off the road entrance to catch Murray cod. Similarly, Queensland, all our impoundments are incredible right now. They're just top notch.
Now we've got folks here who probably want to make that step into fresh water. What's one or maybe two tips you'd give them to make that transition fairly seamless?
To make that transition fairly seamless, I guess you would have to want to have a look west of the coast type thing. So just, you know, for me it started out just being in the car with mum and dad and things like that, going to see a freshwater creek out and that's where it all started for me. But to make that transition, I think it's quite easy, and I think like you can use a lot of the same gear. You can use your light brim combo, you know, to go and chase bass, that sort of thing. So, I don't know. To me, it's not a hard transition. I went from salt to fresh originally, and I still transition back to salt, you know, a couple of times a year and that sort of thing. So it's not a hard thing to do. It's a matter of just changing one leader and one lure really and going for it.
Yeah, like the fundamentals of fishing are the same whether you're salt, fresh, whatever the species is. Understand the species, understand the waterway, what the fish want, and then just apply that, whether it's, you know, out here catching flatties or whether it's, you know, Lake Awooga catching a metre 20. Dino, a lot of evolution over the years when it comes to freshwater fishing. Is there anything on the horizon you think that we're still yet to tap into?
The more with live that you see, the more you understand how intelligent these fish are, and I sort of get curious how I caught 30 fish in a session in a Wonga before live, because now it's nearly impossible. Like you throw a paddle tail lure at a fish and it will move out of the way 20 metres before your lure gets to that line because it can hear you coming. So like Tom's saying, there's going to be other techniques that are going to improve to help us to change, because they're getting very aware of us.
Yep.
But then at the same time, if you fish for them in a bite window, in the right scenario, they're back to being sort of very simple.
When they're going to eat, they're going to eat, regardless of whether they've seen that lure a million times. Tommy, for the folks who don't know, and for us within the industry, it's been a big point of conversation for many years. What is the live imaging and stuff? It's quite controversial in the US. Some people think it's a good thing, it's a bad thing. For the folks who don't know what it is, give us a brief rundown.
So live scope is it's a fairly new technology, I guess. Garmin had it for a few years in their sailing boats and stuff like that, just as a safety thing, and then they just started putting them on bass boats in the States. And from there, it's evolved into this technology that a lot of guys actually use nowadays. And you can use it for brim, bass and barra. There's all different modes, and you can pretty much see your lure land in the water. You can see it swim, and you can see how the fish react. So it's been a huge player on not only catching fish, but designing new lures to catch more fish in the future. And
so traditionally sonars, you know, I'd be in the boat, this is my boat, and it shows me what's underneath. Now the live sonar, I see all of you out there, and I can throw a lure between those two people, and I can see the cast, and I can see you guys move out the way, and then I can see you come over and eat it. It's a bit like they've gamified the experience in a way.
Yeah, and like Dean said before, that it's over the years you can just see how quickly the fish are adapting to it as well, and how quickly aware they're becoming of the boat, the lure, and understanding what to look out for. So, and that's helping us evolve new techniques and stuff. So I think there's a lot of controversial stuff in the States with live scope. People want to ban it and stuff, but for kids, I know kids absolutely love it. They can see what's going on. It keeps them entertained, and if you can afford it, it's a great little tool to help you out fishing on the dams.
It comes at a price though, doesn't it?
It does. You can get some budget sets, but there's definitely some expensive sets you can buy out there.
Folks, does anybody have any questions or a topic we'd like to drill a little deeper on? Nobody's asked the question yet today. Dino, any points you'd like to make on this topic? Now, we were doing this last year on the same topic. In reflection, is there anything you think we didn't touch on last year that was worthy of being covered?
All I'd sort of touch on, if they're looking to transition from salt to fresh, resources now online. There's so many people with like YouTube content, there's blogs, there's everything else. So like Aric's saying, if you're looking to go for bass fishing locally, you could pretty much go on YouTube and look up Yakuma. Like you can look up the locations where you want to go, you can look up the species, and you can learn a lot that way before you go. So you're not just walking in going, wow, what am I going to do? You can go there. You can, even if you're watching a video about an area, it seems familiar, you'll feel more comfortable, and you'll feel, I guess, more likely to catch a fish.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, and there's so much knowledge out there, Tommy. Like when I first met you, which was on a barra tour 10 odd years ago, you're only a little fella. We had magazine write-ups about tournament results and how guys were catching fish and articles in the magazines, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Now we got YouTube, we got blogs, we've got Facebook. We are flooded with info.
Yeah.
Trying to decipher all that and put it together in a manner where you can understand and work out the wheat from the chaff. It can be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, like I remember years ago when I was a kid, used to do the fishing DVD. I used to watch that all the time. I used to almost know all the words. So
Yeah.
I used to just watch the same episodes over and over again. But yeah, like Dean said, YouTube is probably the best way. You can search pretty much barramundi fishing, Lake Fairburn, and Dean's got plenty of videos on it, and you can see exactly where to go and how to catch them, the lures they're using and everything. So the resources are there. You just got to go out, give it a good crack, and you might have some luck. So
Research is the key, isn't it, Ethan, to maximising success when you head out?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So understanding the waterways that you're going into and the way that those fish are, active or how they're going to eat is a major factor in everything. So, and yeah, like these guys put out some awesome content for everyone to have a look at, and yeah, you can definitely learn some amazing stuff off of these guys. Yeah.
Now, Aric, we mentioned it before, but I'll revisit it. Folks here, they want to go for a fish tomorrow. Where would you suggest they go, and what are they chasing?
Right now on the Gold Coast, there's a few things that are on the chew quite well. I know all your smaller species like your brim bass are doing quite well at the moment. But yeah, in the rivers at the moment, there's a heap of trevally getting around at the moment. So yeah, if you got some micro jigs or something like that, that's probably a good bit of fun for everyone, I think.
Now, Dino, you've achieved a lot in fishing over the years. When it comes to freshwater, what's on your hit list moving forward? What's the next goal?
Next goal for me, I need to crack a 130 freshwater barra. My biggest is 128. I've caught multiples, so I need to crack that 130.
Now, is there anything that you can do to enhance your chances of getting a 130, or is it just be in the right spot and hope you get that big bite?
No, like following sort of basic principles, bite times. Live sonar does help massively to understand where they're moving and where they're sitting, to understand what is bigger and stuff. So depends on time of year where they're going to be. But pretty much for me with that 130, it's just going to be I need to catch a lot.
I remember in the early days of the barra tournaments we do, I think it was at Awunga, you guys would be out fishing in the smaller fish, so the 70s and the 80s, they'd bite early, and then the big ones would move in later and those little ones would disappear. I guess those similar patterns still happen, Tommy. The big fish come out to play at certain times?
Yep, 100%. Like those bite times that Dean was talking about before definitely play a big part of it. Moonrise, moon above and all that sort of stuff. And there's obviously still fish to catch in between, and you can get a lucky one every now and then, but sometimes you can do everything wrong, and then next minute for an hour you can't do anything like right. So
do you diarise your days on the water, put notes down, or do you just log it away in the memory bank?
Yeah, I just log it. I know some guys do put it in diaries, but if you're fishing a tournament too, we sort of base our fishing spots depending on the moonrise. So if we're going, we might be able to go crack a few 80s early in the afternoon, and then as soon as that moon starts to come up or the sun starts going down, we go to those bigger fish areas and hopefully get a big one. But yeah, mostly mentally logging all that sort of stuff and talking to other anglers too. Like a lot of anglers on the tournament scene are happy to talk to you and teach you what they know, and it's a really good way to learn. So
yeah, I keep mentioning the barra tournaments, and I will again. One of the things that we used to love about them, we'd be on the road for a week or 2 weeks, was the opportunity, not when we're fishing, but afterwards, to get together and share information. And that was very much the thing that facilitated that huge growth. So sharing information, talking to other people, and drawing on that great expertise is key, isn't it, Dean?
Yeah, so one thing I would say, which we haven't sort of touched on, I guess, is the tournament scene. So Tom's mentioned, like if you come to a Wonga or one of those teams, you can hire a guide. But if you do want to learn how to catch bass, or you do want to learn how to catch brim or barramundi, I'd suggest going to a brim, bass or barramundi tournament as a co-angler. And what you will learn just from fishing with that pro angler or from like general conversation will fast track your freshwater fishing 100%.
Rather than stumbling your way through it solo, drawing upon the expertise of somebody else at a tournament or a guide, it really fastens up your evolution.
And they're all like-minded people in that sort of scenario as well. And if you're new, they're more than happy to help you.
And angler's ego doesn't need much, prodding to share information. So,
Yeah, someone tells you that you're really good at this, I will just spill out all the beans.
all right, guys, we are done and dusted for another talk. Thank you very much. Folks, put your hands together for our guys.